When I teach The Man Who Was Thursday, I often ask students about midway through the novel to draw the caricatures in front of them. And the reason why is because I want them to get a sense that this is not a realistic story, and the descriptions of the characters are meant to be cartoonish. They are meant to look perplexing and look strange, and that Chesterton is doing something with this, that he's revealing something to us by describing the characters this way. So I want to show you an image actually from one of my classes in which they created these cartoons themselves in groups, and you get to see the images of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And of course Thursday is Gabriel Syme, or aka G.K. Chesterton, and you see that I've put this on the board. One of my students who is quite brilliant, Kobe Doloff, and I hope that he's already printed this in an article by the point this comes out, but he has actually looked at the way these characters, who are named for the days of the week, that their grotesque faces come off and they are revealed to be who they truly are by the days of the week. And we see this in the novel, but the days of the week is throughout the course of the story. And so if you go back and read from the beginning, the caricature of Monday, right, the secretary, actually there's throughout the story the white light versus the darkness in him. And so even while he's approaching the group, you see that his face is divided as though between white and black. The water is being divided with Tuesday. That's, of course, what happens in creation. Wednesday, the trees and vegetation. You have Marquis de Eustache, and right before the duel between the two of them, again, this is from Kobe Doloff's work, he looks at how Gabriel Syme is reflecting on life and how he wants to just lay in the grass, and he could see the grass as though it was growing, and he wants to sit under that tree forever. So these characters, their very nature is responding to creation, to the order of creation, to what they're allegorically representing. And Syme is picking up on these things as he goes through the story. Syme himself also comes to represent the sun, moon, and stars on the creation of the fourth day. And he is, of course, he's the poet that waxes and wanes in his emotions in the story. He's the poet that, like the moon, reflects everything that he sees around him. He reflects from Sunday. He can only see Sunday according to his face, not according to his back, right? Kind of like an eclipse. That he is the one reaching for the stars, right? Writing the music of the spheres. Professor de Worms, birds and fish, what do they eat? Worms. This again, all from Kobe Doloff. And then the heraldic animals, Dr. Bull, right? The medical practitioner looking, but he is described as a bull, and there's all of this animalistic imagery. And so each of these characters, when we first are introduced to them, we only see them as the grotesque versions of themselves, but then the masks are taken off and they are revealed to be something completely different. The other thing we have to note when looking at these different characters is the two different ways of seeing the world that we were given in the first chapters between Gabriel and Lucifer. As we get to see by the end of the text, when Lucian is attacking or accusing Sunday, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but when he's accusing Sunday about suffering, have you ever suffered? I can't believe in you because of suffering. This is giving our two different ways of responding to that question. If we respond to the suffering or the fallenness or the negative things in the world in the same way that maybe Professor de Worms analyzes it until it's all chaos and disorder, or Lucian makes it all disorder and anarchy because it's all bad, we might as well blow it all up and destroy it, right? The caricatured version of these characters are Lucian's way of responding. They're the ultimate materialist and modernist and classist and elitist. They're the extreme versions of response to the questions of suffering in the world, right? And these would be Chesterton going to the extremes for himself mentally, how he was responding to his own suffering in the 1890s, and his way of seeing this is how I could respond, to be an atheist, to be a nihilist, to pull back the curtain of the world and find that nothing's there, to dig up underneath everything and there is no floor, there is no grounding. Or I could respond to it differently, that the world has not explained itself to me, that it is still mysterious, but perhaps there is a way that I have been called to be something, to be Monday, to be light and dark versus dark, to be Thursday, a poet of the stars, to be something other than these caricatures of myself, these masks that I'm pretending to be. Perhaps there's a true face that I was created for, that I can respond to creation and the one who created me, but who has not explained the answers to all my questions. And that gets us to the exposures that we get to see in the narrative. Everyone pulls off these masks to the point that Gabriel Syme himself questions whether or not there are any answers at all. And these are the questions of Chesterton, in which you pull off all the masks and you wonder if there's anything on the other side. Was everyone wearing a mask? Was he himself wearing one? Was anyone anything? These are the questions that Chesterton was asking. Was everything a bewildering woodland, a dance of dark and light? What are we? Who are we, and have we forgotten all of our names? And here's the final question of the novel that, again, is never really answered. It is the question that leaves you feeling humbled and confused, and it seems as though every character has a different answer to this question. And this goes back to something that we see in Orthodoxy, in which Chesterton noticed the attacks on Christianity came from every direction. That people could attack Christianity for the Crusades and for being a very violent religion, but they also could attack it for being pacifist and always staying out of wars and always being peace-loving. And the fact that Christianity could be attacked from both sides, he saw as paradoxical and maybe an indicator of its truth, because it embraced all things. It not explained, but it offered room for all experiences of reality within it. And in that sense, it was the most encompassing of all of the different faiths that he had looked through. And so Sunday then becomes kind of the epitome of the rebel and the king that he talked about in Orthodoxy, the one who could be accused of being everything, and that he could withstand all of those accusations, he could withstand all of those explanations, all of those perspectives, all of those subjective views of him, but he himself was still an objective reality. And this was solving some of the questions that Chesterton had been asking earlier in his life. So what was Sunday? Well, at first, all of the 6 men are approaching Sunday to ask him this question, who are you? And Syme realizes what they were actually going is they were asking who they were. They thought they were approaching Sunday to ask who Sunday was, and they found that by going to Sunday, they were essentially asking who they were and what they meant. The president then rises, I love this scene, to an incredible height, like an enormous wave about to arch above them and break. You want to know what I am, do you? You will have found out the truth of the last tree and the topmost cloud before the truth about me. You will understand the sea, and I shall still be a riddle. You shall know what the stars are and not know what I am. Since the beginning of the world, all men have hunted me like a wolf, but I have never been caught yet. So a lot of people read this passage and then think that Sunday himself is creation. One argument that I would make is not necessarily that he is creation, but that his creation is the indicator of who he is as creator. That his identity, as most known in this book, has to do with the one who creates, right? The one who sustains. And yet the mysterious one, the world does not have to explain itself, Chesterton writes in Orthodoxy, but it is the one who gives meaning, and there's a meaning maker. And yet this meaning seems to be magical and miraculous. And this is what we have with Sunday, is the very mysterious meaning maker who created all things but does not have to explain himself. Syme listens to all of his friends describing Sunday, and notices that everyone finds Sunday different, but all of them can only describe him as the universe itself. And so this again is the idea that he is creation, but I don't think that's where Chesterton was necessarily going. We do know that Chesterton had not yet been accepted into the Catholic Church. He waits on Francis to come with him later. But at this point, he was a Christian. He had decided that that was the appropriate alternative to his questions, was to embrace the Christian faith. And yet, his understanding of Christianity at this point is not, it's not like Pan, it's not like the God of Pan, that it is everything, that it is the universe, but that the universe itself was created by the God that Christians worship, and therefore it has to account for all things, the whole world itself. Syme talks about this mystery of Sunday as being the mystery of the world, and that in a sense we shall only know things from behind in the same way that we only know Sunday from behind. This idea almost sounds like it's Platonic, that we're only seeing the shadows on the wall, but there's the real things that are out there. What he's actually talking about is that we're only getting to see things from our limited viewpoint. C.S. Lewis at one point will say, "You've never met a mere mortal. If we could see what human beings actually were, you would want to worship each human being as though it were an angel, because it would just frighten you what we actually are." And so Chesterton's not really talking about the shadows necessarily of things, but more that things in their full reality can only be comprehended by the one who made them and delights in their making, right? In Orthodoxy, at one point, he talks about how God delights in monotony, that perhaps God is like a child telling the sun, do it again, do it again, do it again, like rising up, and that God never tires of this part of creation, whereas human beings become inured or immune to the surprises and the wonder of life. And so we only see things as familiar and not in their unfamiliar beauty. And that's why Sunday sends all of these men on this quest, and also us reading this book, is to once again become acquainted with the wonder of reality, the strangeness of things, the beauty that we can't experience on a regular basis, because we're really only seeing things from behind. We're seeing things from a very limited perspective and not in its fullness, the way that we could if we, of course, were God. We'd be able to see things fully. As the apostles would say, we would see face to face, where we can only see right now the reflection of things. When Syme dresses up in his costume as Thursday, he realizes that this is the actual identity, that everything else he has been up to this point has been a pretense. This is where the face becomes the reality and the mask was the pretend. They were all, of course, pretending to be police officers who are also pretending to be anarchists, who are then revealed to be police officers. But what are they really? They're nothing but those who were called by Sunday, both to be police officers and anarchists. They were called by Sunday to play a part and play a role without knowing fully what that role was or what it entailed. And now that they have been called to be dressed as Thursday, as what they were designed to be, he realized he seemed to be for the first time himself, and that he's not pretending any longer any of those roles, but he is actually what he was created and meant for. And you have this connection now to Job with the questioning of God and trying to understand our responses to this unexplainable universe, to this unexplainable God that doesn't have to explain himself to us. And this is where we get the bookend. So the story began with Lucian Gregory versus Gabriel Syme as the two poets in Saffron Park, and they're offering two different ways of responding to the mysteries of the world. When we get to the very end, and this mystery has at least been partially revealed, the Sabbath, the peace of God, the really still very mysterious nature of Sunday, the accuser, Gregory, is still playing that part in Job of Satan, of accusing God, of saying, yes, but you haven't suffered, and therefore I can't agree with the world that you created. Kind of the Ivan Karamazov part. And Syme is saying, I don't understand it, and yet I'm finding myself, having gone through this whole experience, I figured out who I am. You've revealed to me who I am. And we're ending with this book experience still. So the question then, of course, is posed to the reader by seeing this dialogue between Gregory and Syme. Which perspective do you want? Do you want to be the accuser, right? Or do you want to drink the cup that Christ drank of? Do you want to play this confusing role, suffer through these things that Chesterton, the author, is asking you to suffer from by reading this book, but also on a larger scale that the reality of your life is asking you to suffer from, in which you are in a confusing world and you can't demand explanations from God. So you get to be the accuser, or you get to be Job. You get to be Lucian Gregory, or you get to be Gabriel Syme, and those are the two parts that are left open to you. And Chesterton, as we know, chose to be the part of Gabriel Syme. He believes that what came to be revealed to him through the Christian faith gave answers to those questions that he was seeking. And this to him was very good news.